Alrighty. Good evening, everybody. How are you guys doing? Today is our day 8. Is it not? Amazing, huh? Okay, well, my mic is not on. All right. So time check 9. Our prayer lead for today is Dexter. Dexter, I think you're here.
Recording in progress.
I can see your name. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, Dexter, take it away.
All right. So before we begin our session tonight, let's take a moment to reflect on God's word. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3 says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." As we start this training, let's dedicate our time and learning to God. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening and for the opportunity to gather once again for our US Business Tax training. Thank you for the gift of learning and for bringing us together as one community with a shared purpose. Lord, we commit this session to you. Please bless our mentor, Chris, and everyone here tonight. Grant us wisdom, focus, and understanding as we go through our lessons. Help us to learn with humility, share with generosity, and apply what we gain with excellence, so that everything we do may bring honor and glory to your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, Dex, so very much. And let's now move on to, let's see here. Do we have a quote for the day? Yes, we do. Juvie?
Yes, yes, Chris, I'm here.
I'm sure you're ready, Juvie.
Um,
Yeah, take it
I'm
away.
here. Can I share my screen?
Of course.
Here. Am I sharing now, Chris?
Yes, we can see
Can you
it.
see my, okay. Ano to? Bilis. So this is my, I just wrote the purpose fuels persistence, and I realized that purpose has different meaning to different people. So instead, I just made a poetic reflection. Okay, before I settle on a single interpretation of this quote, I want to acknowledge that the meaning of purpose can be a deeply personal and sometimes even controversial. That's why I've written a poetic reflection rooted in my own story na lang, and an understanding. So I hope it resonates with you. So ito, poetic reflection na lang siya ginawa ko. So this, I start na. Purpose isn't fixed. It evolves with experience, just like software. In my teenage years, my purpose was to graduate, to chase medals, to make the honor roll. In my 20s, I saw job stability, independence, a name of my own. In my 30s, I thought I had found it, the meaning of purpose, whispered through pages I've read, echoed in films that moved me. I believe purpose was found simply living, in breathing deeply, in noticing the light between moments. But life kept unfolding, and thankfully, I discovered another meaning: to retire with grace, to carry the harvest of all I've learned, to walk into the new chapter, and next chapter with wisdom as my companion in entering US taxation. Through every chapter, one truth remains: purpose fuels persistence. It is the quiet engine behind every sacrifice, every late night, every restart. When purpose is clear, yes, persistence becomes unstoppable. That's all lang po.
Wow, can we just give Juvie a wonderful round of applause? That was
Thank
just
you.
awesome, right?
Thank you po.
That was just so inspiring.
Okay. Nung last week ko pa ito ginawa, sabi ko, anong gagawin ko? Meaning, okay,
Good
yun.
job.
I realized,
Go ahead, Jovi.
Okay. I realize kasi dati purpose has different meaning nga. Iba-iba yung meaning sa different. And I believe that just except this year na I was contented. Sabi ko, I am contented. This is my purpose. And ito, nagulat ako may another purpose na nag-arise at this age, at 40. Life begins at 40. Yun lang po.
Indeed. Thank you, Juvie. Again, that's a
Thank you po.
wonderful
Ano
quote.
yung aking
You know,
let
in other people would say, find your why. About why are you doing
yes.
the things that you're doing, or why are you pursuing the things that you want to pursue, right?
Yes
And
po.
that would get you back on your feet when sometimes you feel like lazy, you feel like you're losing the drive and the persistence to continue. You just have to go back. Why did you start it in the first place, right? And to share with you, yeah, many times I ask, why am I doing this borderless accountant thing? I feel like this is a huge commitment, right? Really, really huge commitment. And some of you already know I'm not someone who's into commitment. And doing this, sometimes may moments, right? Like you feel that, is it gonna be worth it? Or I feel like one time I had a compromise, or I had to let go of an opportunity, or something that I'm supposed to be doing personally, but I'm doing this. Those questions come into my head because we're just humans, right? Now, my always go-to question would be, why are you doing this, Chris, to begin with? Why have you started it to begin with? Right? And that goes back, I mean, that brings me back onto my feet. Yung mga moments na tamad kang bumangon, right? They just wanna sleep and, slumber. But again, when you have your why, you also have your clarity, right? Sabi dito sa last line ni Juby, when purpose is clear, persistence becomes unstoppable. Diba? I really, really love that. And I hope, just like me and Juby, that, you know, um, poetic reflection from Juby did resonate with you as well, right? Did you guys feel that? Have you guys found out your why? Sometimes, diba, we don't know our why right away. It's like a continuous questions of what is really my why, right? And only then when you can find your why that things would, eventually make sense. Don't you guys agree? Comment nga.
Yes.
ang quiet
Ayun.
ng mga iba. Right? Comment
Leader po,
kayo.
hindi ko anak.
Alrighty. Thank you, Dex, and thank you, Juby, for getting our night
Thank
started.
you.
We are not done yet. Let's see.
Let
Do we
me
have a
stop.
All
Stop ko
right.
na po.
Thank you, Juby. Thank you for
Okay, thank you
sharing.
po.
Right. For tech tip, we don't have one for today. Come on, you guys. And we don't have for the rest of the dates that we put here. So, and we don't have a recap either. Oh my God. What is going on with you people? Where is our sense of volunteerism? Right. So if you guys feel it in your heart to share, I would really love to hear you and, see your face as well. So just like Juvie, Dexter, these are people who have been with BA for quite a while already. I feel like I know them already. So is Ella, Alma, and there's a bunch of people that I kind of know already, or I'm very familiar with already. So again, you showing up and volunteering in one of this daily thing that we do before we start the proper class is one way for me and for everybody else to get to know you as well. All right, and that's also one way to overcome the fears, the intimidation, your inner what introvertedness or whatever, right? It takes courage to actually speak and show your face before the camera. I know. I again, I have been through that. But you guys, for you to soar high, you have to take the risk, right? And you have to show up too. Anyways, enough of that. So we only had the quote for the day. Again, thank you, Julie. Do we have additional notes resources? Yes, we have. If you just guys go to the notes resources, or why am I not sharing my screen? Give me 1 second. Right, so let me know if you don't see my screen because you should be. Right, so thank you, Nora, for adding another resource. Yesterday, she added some ways on how she can effectively use Google Sheets. Right, so there's a lot of ways that you can use Google Sheets, primarily for collaboration. And as you know, we're using Google Sheets for this shared file. And JB is really good with formatting Google Sheets. So if you guys need help, let JB know. Maybe he has time to help you guys. Alrighty. Before we proceed, do you guys have any questions, concerns, reactions, suggestions that you want to bring up? Anybody who wants to share how has their day been? It's middle of the week already, right? Wednesday. Bilis ng oras. Do you guys feel that na ang bilis ng araw? Lalo na pag may hinahabol ng mga deadline. Oh my God. And I'm traveling back to Bohol on the weekend. So I'll be back in the office and I'll be seeing a lot of Kelly and a lot of Angie again. All right. So wala na talaga, walang mag-share, anything like that. Wala mga last minute. Are you guys good? Parang ang tahimik, no? Hindi ako sanay. All right. Let me just pull up Klein. I thought I had it earlier. Oh, shoot. I'm forgetting something, right? We're not supposed to start right away. We're supposed to play the game, right? I almost forget. How could I? No one is reminding me. Right. So you now see the code on the screen. I am looking for my menus where I can see the chat. So that's the link right there. And the code is 3483844. Right. Merry Christmas, middle of the week, almost month end. That's why a lot of people are busy. A lot of accountants are busy. Need clearance po about the US bookkeeping certification. What do you need clearance, Nora? You want to expand on that question? Nagugulan po sa instructions for the certification. Okay. I gotcha. I'll bring that up after the quiz. So yesterday we had DOMs clutching the top spot. So let's find out who's gonna be the top notcher for today. Sina, I requested access for the shared file. Right. Others are still joining, so let's just wait for that. So start. One moment, Sina, I'm opening up the shared file. All right, it's about to start. Good luck and enjoy. So lease acquisition costs are, is it capitalized, ignored, is it deductible, or is it amortized? It is capitalized. And right, Annie, Dom's on the second spot. PTE or pass-through entity tax helps bypass. Is it the federal limits? Is it the state limits? Is it the SALT limits? Or is it the local limits? I mentioned that yesterday. Right, Dom's now leading, and Mary Chris on second spot. Keep it up. Federal tax deductibility is it amortized? Is it capitalized? Is it deductible? Is it non-deductible? Again, federal tax deductibility. Federal is IRS, okay? Right, it is never deductible. Right, good job for the 35 who got it right. Dom's now leading, still leading. Work papers improve. So the purpose of work paper, is it for marketing strategy? Is it for HR policies? Is it for sales figures? Is it audit ready? I mentioned work papers yesterday, did I? Right, so for audit readiness. And it also is very helpful for the reviewer. Right, Mary Chris now leading, and Larry D is taking the second spot. Tax strategy knowledge benefits. Is it bookkeepers? Is it the sales team? Is it the marketing team? Or is it the HR department? So it's a matter of babilista na lang, you guys. Is it Riri from yesterday? Rent for tangible property is tangible property. Is it capitalized? Is it amortized? Is it deductible? Or is it ignored? Tangible property, like maybe cars, machines, are they capitalized? Are they amortized? Or are they deducted? So they are deducted as expense, as a regular business expense. Right, Larry D coming on top. Prepaid interest is expensed immediately. Is it capitalized? Is it amortized? Is it ignored? So I think that was part of the question, a review question from yesterday about prepaid interest. So I think the example there was 3 months, right? The first month was the only one that was expensed and the other two were amortized. So if you recall that. Now Adele is showing up on the scoreboard. Good job. Loan origination points are, these are the points that you see in the 1098 statement. Is it amortized? Is it deductible? Is it capitalized? Or is it ignored? So it is amortized. Hindi siya dinadeduct one time. All right, Joanne is coming. Is it Joanne now? Year-round tax planning is unnecessary? Is it optional? Is it rare? Or is it important? It is important. And it's very helpful for the bookkeepers to do it if they're, knowledgeable about tax strategies. Which taxes are deductible? So alin daw ang deductible? Is it the federal tax? Is it the state tax? Is it the sales tax? Or is it the personal tax? It's the state taxes. Federal and personal taxes are similar. Sales taxes, liability, because you pre-collect that and then you remit that to the state. Good job, Joanne. Interest on investment loans is Is it deductible? Is it capitalized? Is it amortized? Or is it non-deductible? An example about that yesterday, right? So the investment is a deductible expense that helps offset the income from that investment. All right, who is M? Nagtipid mo naman M. So 12 out of 14. PTE tax payments affect federal tax, sales tax, taxable income, or personal tax. So PTE tax payment is a tax expense. So where does it impact? It impacts the taxable income because it's deductible as a regular business expense. Good job, M. Two more questions to go. Excise taxes are a what? Deductible, amortized, capitalized, non-deductible. So excise taxes, those are the taxes on fuel, right? And that was part of the question from yesterday. What do we do with the taxes on fuel? So we just simply deduct them as part of the total expense. All right, M is now leading. One more question, and let's see if M can maintain her lead, his or her lead. Interest expense under refinancing is amortized, capitalized, deductible, or ignored. When you refinance the property, what do you do about the interest? So it becomes like deduction, right? Usually only the interest that's, upon purchase of the property that's capitalized, depending on the nature of the property. Right, good job, M. M on the first place, Larry, second, Rihanna, third spot. Good job, you guys. Congratulations. So we gotta update our lead sheet. So we have a new name today. And I'm not sure even if it's a name, M. What does M stands for? Or is it just your name? It's really just M. Ang tipid mo.
Pakilala or else Milesi na yon.
So M, you have to chat us your name, or like what does M stands for? M for mysterious, right? Mysterious girl or mysterious gentleman. We don't know what you are. But we know you're a human being. M for maganda. Alrighty. So M remains a mystery. Kalala ka sa amin, M, one of these days when you have the courage and the guts. It's me. Right. Mag-present ka ng birth certificate mo, yung IP address mo na ginamit mo for this quiz para ma-claim mo yung prize mo before the DTI representative. Alrighty. Let's now continue. Time check 7:23. So we're starting a bit earlier today, which is good. So we are able to cover a lot of stuff. All right. That was one good way to start the day, right? Okay. So we're done with the first part, the entity types, methods, and periods. I hope this is clear with you guys already. The income and income from farms and related expenses, rental property and loss limitations, and we have covered business expenses. And there are going to be other deductions. So I think after these 5, we can already do some exercises in ProConnect, building up a tax return. Okay, because we have already the income and then the expenses. And then we'll cover basis, depreciation, probably start of next week para lang di tayo masyadong mabilis. Makahabol yung iba. All right, so let's start off with other deductions and what to expect. We will have several So 9 items to cover: business meals, travel expenses, insurance, bad debts, business gifts, other business expenses, business use of home, very, very important, you guys, statutory employees or non-employees, and QBID, right? So let's get started. All right, wait a second. I think I haven't shared my audio yet. So let me stop and reshare. All right, before we start pala, there was a question from Nora about the certification. So there are two certification, one from the website, right, which we are continually improving because it's the team who are not necessarily accountants who are in charge of that. So, and once you're done with that, you have to go through that because only then you will get the certificate from the website. But when it's in the website, I don't fully trust that you're really taking the quizzes faithfully. So there is another way that you get certified where I will get to sign the certificate, okay? And there's also going to be a one-on-one before the certification, and that way I get to know you, because that certification would lead you to would open opportunities for you for internship within borderless accountants, within the partner firms, and even possibly an employment, right? So I'm only gonna be, except for some people who I already know, right? Um, there are preferences to those who I got certified personally. So I have a separate GC for that already. So once you get certified, you pass the exam that I am personally conducting. I will have you on a separate channel, because from there I will make announcements on job opening, internship opportunities, right? And it's for a fee, guys. So it's optional. You don't have to, but it's for a fee because I'm going to be spending a lot of time with you, and then it also opens opportunities for you. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's not at all like, it's not, if you show promise in the community, like I'm saying that you're really putting an effort, but you just cannot afford to pay, um, I may take exceptions, right? Like that's why important for me to know you, and notice you, because I may reach out to you personally, and I have done that for for a handful of people already, because we would not just um, what is that? So the purpose of the certification and the one-on-one is again to get to know you on a more personal level, because once we endorse you to potential partners, we don't want you to be the last, right? So we want to endorse the right person. So, that endorsement would lead to more endorsement in the future, right? So we only would want to, give reference to the best amongst, the board of accountants community, and also those I can personally feel that have adopted the community values, right? And you know what the values are already. And um, so yeah, the certification is two parts, and this will be true for the individual taxation and the business taxation as well, right? So there is going to be 3 certification, and each certification will be 2, right? So one that you will get online. So if you watch through all the materials online and take all the quizzes there, once you complete, the website will generate a certificate for you. Okay. And then after that, you'll also get an instruction on what to do next if you would want to pursue a one-on-one and a personal certification with me. Right. So then you will be booking a time. Again, that instruction will be available to you when you complete the certification online. Okay. So I'm not going to disclose that to everybody because, you would no longer have to finish the online certification. And we need that because, especially for tax, where a lot of partners are asking how is the certification done, right? Is it rigorous? Is it, does it have credibility, right? So we don't just, give out certificate just because, you completed the the course, right? But you have to pass some metrics, right? And for the one-on-one, if you just go through the online resources and pass the exams there, that's also okay, right? Like for me, again, the course is designed for you to be able to use the learnings that you have to apply in any, kasi marami namang platforms, right? Ang daming platforms that you can apply uh, into. For example, Upwork, online jobs, PH, mayroon pang LinkedIn. So you can all go there and apply directly, right? But what is the BA route? So the BA route, I will personally look for an employment opportunity for you, right? So over time, we've built many connections already, and they need the right people, right? And I cannot just say, pwede to si ano mag-intern sa'yo, o pwede to si ano mag ano, right? Because it's my word, right? That's gonna have you know ayoko namang mapahiya, basically. That's what I'm saying, right? Ayoko mapahiya dun sa kung kanino ako nag-recommend, kasi if the person don't turn out or does not turn out to be the right fit, baka hindi na yan maghingi ng referral sa akin, right? So that's where I needed that certification. And also, I discovered this, I hope you agree with this, that there are some people who are really good course taker, right? Or like they're really good at exams. I have met someone who I certified as in the bookkeeping certification is really good. Like initially when we did one-on-one, he has a problem with communication, which true to some of you guys, right? Hindi makapasa-pasa sa interview because yun nga, awkward yung kanyang English, right? So I got to know him. I put down notes for him, and I asked a lot of questions. He asked a lot of questions to me as well, and I was surprised because nung nag-certification, I almost got the exam perfect. May dalawa lang siyang mali. So initially, my opinion was like, medyo hilaw pa to, right? But when he took the exam, he was a really good exam taker, meaning he alam niya yung mga fundamentals, right? And that made me realize that meron talagang tao na magaling, right? Magaling sa exam, magaling sa um, paggawa ng kanyang work or for job, but he may have a difficulty getting the job because again, hindi siya makapasa-pasa sa interview. And that's what we also want to overcome, right? Because for some, if you're already vouched for, right? If you're already vouched for, na, kasi like what I would tell to others is that, hey, this person may not necessarily be good at com skills, right? Um, but right? We both know na sa tax hindi naman talaga kailangan ng com skills because we barely talk to people. You barely communicate verbally or orally to your clients or even some firm owner. It's usually email, right? And now we have Chat GPT, have a lot of tools that you can use to help you compose the message, right? If it's asking for documents or asking for clarification on some of the documents, this can be done through email or chat, for example, right? So hindi mo kailangan ng taong magaling magsalita, right? Kailangan mo ng taong magaling mag-prepare ng tax. And they don't necessarily come in tandem, yung communication and saka yung galing sa work, right? The technical stuff. And so that's another way on how we can help these people. Yung magaling sa exam, magaling sa gawa, but not necessarily good at interview, because then we can vouch for that person. And even at WITA, the WITA's culture is almost embracing borderless as well. We don't care so much about how good you are with communication, because we know that ang tax naman, again, is not really customer facing na work, but it helps, right? It helps in terms of leadership role, in terms of maybe putting you in a supervisory or a managerial role, because if you can communicate well, then you can delegate tasks well as well, right? But for you to get to work as a bookkeeper, as a tax preparer, you can work on it over time, right? But it doesn't have to be the most important thing for you to get the job, But sadly, when you are interviewed by a client, for example, through Upwork, Online Jobs PH, LinkedIn, that's what they are looking for, right? Someone na naiintindihan nila, right? Because you will be working directly for that person, right? And this competition is also very tough, right? Because when someone publish a job opportunity, there's going to be a lot of applicants, and you may not stand out based on the interview skills. But during interview, hindi naman malalaman yung galing mo sa pag-prepare ng tax, right? Hindi yan necessarily na ascertain, right? It's actually during the work na. Even the work habit, the attitude, you cannot easily determine that during an interview. And so I'm a believer of that, right? Because I gave a lot of chances to so many people na wala masyadong com skills, but they learn how to do tax, right? And that's one way how we can, or how I can help you get into the door. You know what I mean? Because syempre, kung bahay mo yan, di ba? You would be hesitant to let someone in if you don't know the person. You know what I mean? Right? So you have to know the person so that you'd be more comfortable to let that person come into your house and open that door for that person. You get that analogy? Right? So that's the goal, right? That's the goal for us. And again, the way that we're conducting the course, don't get me wrong, is completely free still. You are open. Magaling ka magsalita, right? Once you learn from this, you publish a profile like what yung isa nating friend, si Minerve, diba? That's what she did. I don't remember having talked to Minerve at all, like on a personal basis, but I got to know her because every day siya nag-attend nung personal tax course natin that we started in June. So nagpa-participate siya. So her name stuck into my head, and she was really good with Canva. She was really diligent in applying and adding more training into her portfolio, and she got the job, right? So different path, right? Different route. What we're providing at BA is more hands-on and more personalized, but you have the option as well. So the choice is pretty much yours. Get me? And I hope that gave you some clarity, Nora. So the bookkeeping has been made available. Don't expect perfection there. There's a lot of things that we can improve in the bookkeeping side. On the tax individual part, where they're spending a lot of time on that already. So we hope to have that available maybe in the next 2 weeks, because I'm going to be opening internship soon for personal and business tax. Because kaya nga natin minamarathon din tong tax course, because by December, I really hope to get started with internship program, kasi palapit na yung tax prep. In fact, I've already reached out to some of you, to 3 of you, to get the sense, if there is an opportunity for us to work together. So yeah. Anyway, okay naman na tayo, no? Na clarify naman. So again, optional lang yan. If you guys are clear with what I just said, good. If not, pwede naman kayo mag-message directly sa akin, and we can talk or we can chat. Alrighty. So having said that, let us get started with other deductions. I'm just lost right now. I don't see the chat button. There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jonah. All right, Mary Chris. I'm also very excited to have you as an intern. I feel like you're really good and very hungry. Right. So now let's continue. Again, other deductions ito. Let me know if you can hear the audio.
I often tell my students
You guys
that
can hear, right? Okay, good.
being a practicing enrolled agent and working with clients is kind of like being a detective. We're constantly looking for clues our clients will give to find other deductions to take and help lower their tax liability. In this study unit, we'll go through several deductions that are often very common for a business, but may not immediately pop out. Got to find the clues. We'll look at limitations like the 50% meal limitation and business gift limits. We'll also look at a home office deduction, which can be a game changer for some clients. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it.
All right. So sabi niya, para daw tayong detective, which is really true. My first few years in tax prep, I don't really mind about looking for deductions because I've like, ano lang, kung ano lang binigay ni client, yun lang din yung i-enter ko sa tax return. So I don't really go out of my way to ask more questions from the client, like business mileage, home office, because I didn't see the value in it yet, right? And then hinahayaan ko na lang din yung reviewer na magtanong doon, right? Kasi usually, once my work is reviewed, si reviewer may direct communication yan with the taxpayer. So hinihingi na yung additional information. And nakikita ko na lang yun sa notes doon sa CRM. But joining other firms, I realized that the owners or the reviewers really appreciate it when you are being proactive in asking those questions, right? Like, pag nagre-review kayo ng previous tax return, nakita nyo may home office doon, may mileage deduction. Tapos this year, when you're preparing the tax return, walang binigay si client na mileage information. Usually, naka-fill out yan sa tax organizer. And minsan mga client, tamad, right? Pagtangin nila sa tax organizer, pwede na nilang isubmit, sinasubmit na nila yan without having to fill everything out. So our role, again, is be proactive in asking questions that could help them lower their taxes, right? That's our role. Hindi tayo basta-basta nag-prepare ng tax return, but we want to help our client minimize the taxes that they owe. And if it's a refund, make it a point that there is a way for you to increase that amount of refund legally. And if you do that, your client would be impressed with you, or the firm owner that you're working with will be impressed with you. Or if you're working as a bookkeeper, you will start finding these items in the books of your client, right? So you're becoming like pro client, right? And your client would appreciate that for sure. All right, so let's get started with business meals.
Taking a client to a great dinner for maintaining the business relationship is often part of the enrolled agent's business. Let's take a look at the tax implications for us and our clients. Now, prior to 2018, businesses could deduct a wide variety of entertainment expenses. This included activities like entertaining guests at nightclubs, sporting events, theaters, providing vacations, trips, hotel suites, automobiles, and even food and beverages. Essentially, if you were entertaining a customer or their family, those expenses were deductible. However, post 2018, the rules changed significantly. Now, only the food and beverage portion of these expenses remains deductible, and this is referred to as the business meals deduction. For a business meal to be deductible, it must meet several criteria. One, ordinary and necessary as an expense, meaning the meal must be an ordinary and necessary expense for your business. This means it should be common and accepted in your trade or business. Second, not lavish or extravagant, meaning the expense should not be lavish or extravagant. It should be reasonable based on the facts and circumstances. For example, a modest lunch at a local restaurant is acceptable, but a 5-course meal at a luxury resort might not get there. Finally, attendance. The meal must be attended by the taxpayer or an employee of the taxpayer. So if you send a client a gift card for a meal, that won't qualify. We also must have a business relationship. The meal must be provided to a current or potential business customer, client, consultant, or similar business contact. This ensures that the meal has a clear business purpose. Also, the meal must be separate from entertainment. The cost of the meal must be separately stated from any non-deductible entertainment expense or purchased separately from the entertainment. So, for instance, if you take a client to a baseball game and buy dinner at the stadium, the meal must be itemized separately from the game ticket. All right, so let's say you take a client out, a potential client out for lunch to discuss a new project. The meal costs $50. As long as it is ordinary, necessary, not lavish, attended by you and the client, and they're a potential business contact, you can deduct the $50 as a business meal expense. Now, it's important to note that the amount deductible for meals is actually only 50% of the actual expense. This limit applies not only to meals provided to clients or business contacts, but also to the taxpayer's own meals. Related expenses such as taxes, tips, parking, fees, those are all subject to the 50% limit as well. However, transportation costs to
Oh my God, starting again.
and from the business meal are percent limit as well.
Right. So, while waiting for this to load, important thing that you need to know for business meals is that it has to be at least two people involved, right? It cannot be just the taxpayer, and the taxpayer must be in that meal, right? Is it dinner, lunch, or breakfast? So there can be an established rule. Like if you're a bookkeeper and you see expenses that's related to meals, for example, 7-Eleven, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, if these are like $10 or below, or maybe even $20 or below, that's likely for one person only, right? So if it's only one person and you're seeing that in the business credit card or business debit card, then there has to be a communication with the client, and you can tell that client that, can we establish a rule that if the meal is $20 or below, that this is personal, rather than categorizing that as an expense, because it's likely someone that's likely his own expense, right? Starbucks, for example, like he goes through a drive-through, right? So if it's $20 and below, that's reasonably a meal with just a client, right? But if it's like 30, 40, that's likely for two people, right? So in that case, what you can do is establish a rule: $20 or below, personal; $20 and above, business meals. So para hindi kayo diretsong pagkakita nyo ng expenses related to McDonald's, for example, meals agad, right? That's one way for you to establish a rule.
However, transportation costs to and from the business meal are not under the 50% limit. So let's go over some specific rules. The IRS requires substantiating evidence for any meal expense over $75. This means you need to provide documented dates, amounts, location, purpose, and the business relationship involved. Without this documentation, the deduction could potentially be denied. The expenses of a spouse are not deductible.
Right. So for the substantiating evidence, a receipt would already be sufficient. Yung receipt ng transaction, maglagay lang ng remark yung taxpayer. And if you happen to categorize transaction within this limit, it's best to ask or screenshot the bank, the credit card transaction, yung sa statement, and then i-attach nyo sa QuickBooks Online or whatever tax software you're using. But in case of an audit from the IRS or inquiry from the IRS, then you can show that. Kasi the way the IRS would conduct an investigation on a tax return that they're doubtful of, they'll send you a notice, right? So they'll send you a note they'll send the taxpayer a tax notice to that taxpayer's address, and then they would list down what they require. right? So if you have it ready, then just mail that with the to the provided address of the IRS, attaching all the documents that's required.
Unless that spouse is also a business associate. So if your spouse is not involved in the business, their meal expense cannot be deducted. There is an exclusion from employee income for meals furnished on the business premises of the employer if they are provided for the convenience of the employer. These meals are deductible by the employer as ordinary and necessary business expense, but the deduction is also limited to 50% of the expense. However, meals and entertainment expenses for employee recreation, such as a holiday party or an annual picnic, remain 100% deductible. There is an exception to the
Right,
50%.
so employee recreation, kung may mga event that's held as part of the employment engagement. So any meals related to that is 100% business expense.
Limit being this fully deductible group meal for employees. Now, suppose you take a client out for dinner and the total bill is $200, including taxes and tip. You can deduct $100, which would be 50% of $200 as a business meal expense. If you also paid $20 for parking, you can deduct $10, which would be half of the $20. But remember, if you can't provide receipts and documentation for these expenses, the IRS may deny the deduction. So those are the highlights.
What happens when the IRS deny the deduction? So what it does is it will send you a breakdown or a notice again, where it compares what the tax return that you filed, the amounts that you filed, and the amounts that the IRS processed, and the difference, right? So if the difference lead to a tax due, you'll have to pay that at a certain date, right? If the deduction led to a refund, you will just get a refund automatically. Right, so ganun naman sila ka-transparent. They'll give you details of the expenses that they disallow. And if you happen to disagree with the disallowance, pwede ka namang mag-appeal.
Highlights of the business meals expense rules. Thanks for watching. Which of the following is not required for a business meal to be deductible? Okay, not required. Is it A?
All right. Just read through the question. I'm reading a question from Juvie. No penalty po. Usually, wala naman. Pag may disallowance, walang penalty yun. All right. So the question is, which of the following is not required for a business meal to be deductible? Is it A, the expense must be ordinary and necessary? So remember, we're looking for the incorrect statement. Letter B, the meal expense must be separately stated from any entertainment expense. Or letter C, the meal must take place during the taxpayer's business hours. Or letter D, the meal must be attended by the taxpayer or the taxpayer's employee.
A, the expense must be ordinary and necessary. Well, there's two components that we should commit to memory around business expenses. Ordinary and necessary, reasonable in amount. So that's definitely one that should be there. So we won't consider A. B, the meal expense must be separately stated from any entertainment expenses. And one of the core tenets of deductibility is that entertainment is not deductible. It used to be a while ago. You used to hear the phrase M&E, meals and entertainment, but we don't hear that any longer. We don't see that. So this seems like a fairly reasonable line item that we should have to have those separately stated. So that seems okay. C, the meal must take place during the taxpayer's business hours. Well, goodness, that could be 9 to 5. Dinner generally happens afterwards. So if you take a client to dinner, that kind of seems a little bit unreasonable then. So C is kind of front runner for me. D, the meal must be attended by the taxpayer or the taxpayer's employees. That also seems reasonable. How else are you going to discuss business unless you're there to solicit more business from your client that you're taking to dinner? So C is the answer. It does not have to occur during business hours. It can be really at any time that your client is available and you want to bring them out and treat them to a meal.
Right. So one thing to remember, entertainment expenses are no longer deductible as a business expense. So when you're, bookkeeping the client's books or maintaining the client's books, and you see expenses related to entertainment like football game, basketball, if the client, or if the business owner takes a client to, a bar or, whatever form of entertainment it is, you can still classify that as an expense in the books, but pagdating sa tax prep, that's excluded, right? So it's never it's never a business expense. Others, they would just simply categorize that as personal. So para maiwasan na yung book to tax difference. So since alam mong entertainment is not a business expense, rather than putting that as an entertainment expense on the books, diretso mo nang i-categorize as personal. Again, the purpose of that is para walang discrepancy yung book na financials versus yung report natin sa tax return. And then why, you may ask, why is it 2018? Because 2018, that's when the TCJA was introduced by Trump, right? In his first administration, he became president in 2016. And then 2018, he had a massive tax amendment, which was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Squire, a self-employed attorney, is a member of Executive Club, which is a professional business person's club. He uses the club on a regular basis to entertain clients. Squire had the following detailed records to substantiate the expenses of Executive Club during the year. Okay, so we see the expenses. The question ultimately asks, what amount may Squire deduct on his income tax return for the current year? Two things ought to be resonating in your mind. One is
so,
this.
Basahin niyo muna, and I will read the question from Aya. It stated that meals should be reasonable to be deductible. How about the employee recreation is extravagant or expensive? Is this deductible? Pag extravagant and expensive, and you already know that it's not ordinary and reasonable, then as a bookkeeper, that will be your discernment or professional judgment, right? If you want to cut that into half to make it reasonable, right? So the other half would be charged to the owner, but you have to talk to the owner, right? Because like if you're looking at meals, like I think we had that example in actual setting when we did the bookkeeping for soundboard. There was an expense at a certain fancy restaurant in New York that costed about, I think, $3,000. So and there was one for $800, and that's a lot, right, for meals. So we did categorize that as meals still, but we raised that question before the business owner to give us more information as to what that expense was for, right? How many people were there? Was it a valid business expense, right? And we usually take the word of the client. Like if the client says it's justifiable, $3,000, there were 5-6 people, it's a business expense. We take the word of the client. We don't argue with the client that, hey, per my business, per my professional judgment, dapat ano lang to, 1,000. Baka matanggal ka, right? So pag sinabi mo naman, na document mo naman yung in yung communication that he black and white said that it's really business expense, then again, take the word of the client for it. Anyway, pag inaudit naman siya naman yung magbabayad ng penalty. Joke lang. But you have to communicate, right? Just to give forewarning back. So this is applied to disregard entities or all types of businesses. Good question, Jessica. This applies to all entities. Is it even if it's Schedule C, Schedule E for rental, S corp, partnership, even C corp. So these expense. That's why we talk about this early, because these are basic for all of the business entities. No, going back to the question. Squire, a self-employed attorney, is a member of Executive Club, which is a professional business person's club. He uses the club on a regular basis to entertain clients. Squire had the following detailed records to substantiate the expenses of Executive Club during the current year. Dues, 1,200 is a deductible. Meals consisting of bona fide business discussions with clients, 1,000. Tips, 200. Transportation from or to and from meals, 150. So which of the four are business deductions? Let's find that out.
This word right here, entertain. Entertainment, you simply cannot deduct. So when we see dues here for entertaining clients, that's not going to be deductible as a result. So we won't consider that. Meals, however, consisting of bona fide business discussions with clients, this is deductible, so we'll give that a big old check, but we got to multiply that times 50%. Meals always take a 50% haircut under the current law. So we will enjoy $500 of that deduction. Now, associated with that would be the tips, right? You got to tip your servers, definitely should, but those are also subject to 50% haircut. So we will include those at $100. So I've got $600 so far. Now, what about the $150 associated with transportation to and from the meals? That is deductible in full. So we don't have to take a 50% haircut on the mileage or the transportation, the cab fare, the Uber ride to and from. So that's the ones that we want to pick up here. Don't forget meals at 50%, entertainment, never deductible. C is our answer.
All right. So wag ka lang malito ha. Ang pag meals na expense is only 600. The 150 is a business expense, but this is categorized differently. Transportation, right? Kasi ang tinanong naman dito, what amount of Squire deduct on his income statement for the current year? Hindi naman sinabing meals expense. You get me? And what was it I gonna say? If you're doing the bookkeeping, you don't have to do the 50%. So you record in the books the 100%. So in this case, 1,200, right? It's 1,200 that you record. Otherwise, hindi kayo magre-reconcile sa bank, right? Kapag nag 50% agad kayo sa meals. Si tax preparer na ang mag 50% yan. Okay? So again, for the bookkeepers, 100% yung dinideduct nyo. Ang 50% is only during the tax preparation. Kasi pag ginawa niyong 50% to, and binigay niyo yung financials sa tax preparer, si tax preparer, kung hindi niya alam na 50% na pala yan, mag-a-assume siya na 100% yan. Right? And so yung 100% na yan, magdideduct pa siya ng 50%. So the client actually lost 50% of an expense. You get what I'm saying? So just deduct 100% if you're on the bookkeeping side.
$750.
Right lang. I'd rather show you that in the Broken Neck so that you understand what I'm talking about, okay? So let's open Broken Necks. And let's just demonstrate Schedule C kasi the same lang din naman to, whether Schedule C or business entities. So you guys have access to ProConnect, right? Make sure that you're also navigating it. It's a really good tool, and the best thing about it is that it's free. Tips with receipts. Who give receipts for tips? Yeah, usually naman nakasulat yan sa resibo. And usually, that's part of the line item dun sa credit card. Kung ginamit mo a credit card to pay for the for the bill, implicit na dun yung tips. And in the US, it's very common to have tips. Kaya ayaw kong kumain dun sa labas talaga. From there, visit ako. Kasi ginagandahan din naman nila yung service. Like, when I remember when I was in Florida, tapos I ate at this restaurant that's, facing the beach. I mean, just uh, walking distance sa beach. And then, kumain lang naman ako doon ng, ewan ko, yung most affordable food. Tapos, napaka-accommodating nung server. So, binabalik-balikan ako. Are you good? How are you doing? Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. So, syempre, pagdating nung bill, dadalhin nila yung bill. Tapos, magdadala na rin sila ng terminal. Sa terminal, nakalagay na doon yung tip. Tapos, pinaka-minimum 18%. 18, 20, 20, 25, tapos 30 ata. So, pipindutin mo lang yung tip. Pero pwede ka naman mag-customize. Mag-customize kung magkano lang yung percentage. Pero pwede ka ding mag-decline. Pero nakakahiya. Like, nandun yung server. So, parang makakompel ka talaga to pay for the tip. Even yung mga Starbucks, yung mga maliliit na mga tindahan, meron pa din after nung transaction, before ka mag-pay, meron talagang parang dialogue box na magkano yung ititip mo. It's been a cultural thing. So here, if you go to Schedule C, this is a 1065. Sige na nga, dito tayo sa deductions. Kasi pareho lang naman to, whether Schedule C, Schedule 1120S, 1065, pareho lang yan. So here, so this is the 50%, right? So automatic kapag nilagay mo dyan 100, ang system mag-automatic yung natin ko. Mag-generate ito ng form. Right, see? Automatic siyang nag-generate na 50% lang. See? Total deduction, that's the 50% on meals. So automatic siya, hindi na ikaw magko-compute. So be careful na yung ini-input mo is the 100%, not the 50%. Makes sense, guys? Okay. So now let's move on to travel.
As a business owner, I'm a huge fan of travel for work. Let's take a look at the tax treatment for business travel.
Yeah, Chirene, kasi yung client mo is based in New York. And New York is really heavy on tips. Yeah, New York, California, Caloocan, Florida, sa mga major tourist destination ng mga states.
When you're traveling for business and stay overnight, you can deduct ordinary and necessary travel expenses, including meals. However, remember that meals expenses are subject to the 50% limit. So let's look at some specific rules and exceptions. If your trip is primarily for personal reasons, meaning more days are spent on personal activities than business, you cannot deduct the travel expenses. However, you can still deduct directly related business expenses incurred at the destination. The travel expenses of your spouse are not deductible unless there is a bona fide business purpose for their presence. They are an employee, and the expenses would otherwise be deductible. Commuting between your home and work is not deductible. Your home, for tax purposes, is considered to be 1, your regular or principal place of business, or 2, if you have no regular or principal place of business, your regular place of abode in a real and substantial sense. 3, if your work is in a new location and that becomes indefinite, travel expenses are not deductible because it's treated as though you've changed your tax home to a new work location. Travel expenses for attending investment meetings are not deductible, nor is travel as a form of education, such as a Spanish teacher traveling to Spain to improve her Spanish. For individuals subject to Department of Transportation hours of service rules, such as truck drivers, the deductible meals percentage is actually increased to 80%. So suppose you're a consultant traveling to another city for a week-long business trip. You spend 3 days in meetings and 4 days sightseeing. Because the trip is primarily personal, you cannot deduct the travel expenses. However, you can deduct the expenses directly related to the business meetings, such as meals, subject to the 50% limitation, and any business-related transportation at that destination. When it comes to automobile use for business, you really have two options for deductions. You can deduct the actual expenses incurred for using your automobile for business purposes. This includes costs like services, repairs, gas, other related expenses. Alternatively, you can use the standard mileage rate, which adjusts for inflation each year, so please check your GLIME knowledge transfer outline for the current rate. In addition to this rate, you can also deduct expenses such as parking fees and tolls, which are not considered actual automobile expenses. Now let's talk about travel expenses within the US. When you're traveling for business, expenses other than transportation, like airfare, need to be allocated based on whether the purpose of the trip is personal or business. If the primary purpose of the trip is business, transportation expenses are fully deductible. If the primary purpose of the trip is personal, transportation expenses are not deductible at all. There is no proportional allocation for transportation costs when traveling within the US. If you fly to a conference for business purposes and the airfare costs $500, you can deduct the full $500. However, if you go primarily for vacation and then attend a short business meeting during the trip, that airfare is not deductible. When you travel outside the US and stay overnight, you generally need to allocate your travel expenses, including meals and lodging, between the time spent on business and the time spent on personal activities. There are, however, 3 key exceptions where no allocation is required for transportation costs, meaning the entire transportation expense can be considered a business expense. If you did not have substantial control over arranging the trip, it is considered entirely for business. This might apply if your employer or client arranged the trip for you. If the trip lasts no more than 1 week, 7 consecutive days counting the day of return, but interestingly not the day of departure, and personal vacation was not a major consideration, the trip is considered entirely for business. For example, if you leave on Monday and return the following Monday, the trip is considered business if the primary purpose was work-related. If the trip is longer than a week, but less than 25% of the total time away from home being spent on non-business activities, the trip is considered entirely for business. For this calculation, include both the day the trip began and the day the trip ended. So, for instance, if you were away for 10 days and spent 2 days on personal activities, the trip is still considered for business since only 20% of the time was actually non-business. Suppose you travel to London for a 10-day business trip from the United States. You spend 8 days in meetings and 2 days sightseeing. Because less than 25% of your time was spent on personal activities, the entire transportation cost to and from London can be considered a business expense. When you attend a convention that is related to your business, the travel expenses you incur can be deductible. So here are some key points to consider. The fact that you use vacation or leave time to attend the convention, or that your attendance is voluntary, actually does not necessarily negate the deduction. What truly matters is the relevance of the convention to your business. Expenses for conventions or meetings related to investments, financial planning, or other income-producing property, those aren't deductible. These types of conventions do not qualify as business-related for deduction purposes. Now, to show that attending a convention benefits your trade or business, you can compare the convention agenda with your official duties and responsibilities. If the agenda deals with your specific duties, it supports the argument that the travel is ordinary and necessary for your business. So suppose you are a marketing manager and you attend a marketing convention. The agenda includes sessions on the latest marketing strategies, digital marketing tools, and case studies relevant to your work. Even if you take vacation days to attend that conference, the travel expenses can be deductible because the convention directly relates to your job and your job duties. When an employee incurs expenses for business purposes and gets reimbursed by the employer, the tax treatment depends on whether the reimbursement is part of an accountable plan or a non-accountable plan. If reimbursements equal the expenses and the employee provides an accounting of these expenses to the employer, such as receipts, the reimbursements are excluded from the employee's gross income. This means that they are not included on the employee's W-2, and the employer can deduct those expenses. This rule also applies if reimbursements exceed expenses, as long as the excess is returned to the employer and the employee substantiates those expenses. Excess reimbursements are not returned, or if the employee does not substantiate expenses, those reimbursements then become includable in the employee's gross income. In that case, none of the expenses are deductible by the employee. So suppose you spend $200 on business travel and get reimbursed $200 by your employee. If you provide receipts and expense reports, the $200 reimbursement is not included in your income, and your employer is eligible to deduct the $200. However, if you receive $250 and do not return the excess $50 or provide documentation on the entire $250, then interestingly, the entire $250 is includable in your income. Unreimbursed employee expenses are not deductible. This means if you incur business expenses that are not reimbursed by your employer, you cannot deduct these expenses on your tax return. Proper record keeping is so crucial for substantiating your expenses. You generally need documentary evidence such as receipts, canceled checks, bills, or other documentation to support your expenses. This evidence should show the amount, date, place, and essential character of the expense. Adequate documentation, absolutely crucial. A canceled check together with a bill from the payee usually establishes the cost. However, a canceled check alone does not provide a business expense without additional evidence showing that it was for business purpose. Documentary evidence is not needed for expenses other than lodging that are less than $75. If, for example, you spend $50 on a business lunch, you should keep the receipt showing the date, amount, and business purpose. If you only have a canceled check, you need additional documentation to prove it was a business expense.
All right. Now, as bookkeepers, when you're recording these expenses, it's probably best to ask your clients about these expenses rather than just, blindly putting it. When you're categorizing, for example, you saw an American Airlines transaction on a bank statement, right? Most of us would just categorize this as travel, right? And it could be fine, right? It could be fine. And then comes the tax return preparation. The tax preparer will just take that as travel. If we continue to do that, and especially if it involves huge amount of numbers, your client could be in risk of or at the risk of getting audited by the IRS, right? So when you're audited, then the IRS would start looking for documentation, and if you don't have it, that's when the IRS may slap your client with penalties. And sino yung magiging accountable? Ikaw, kasi ikaw yung bookkeeper, right? So as a bookkeeper, ugaliin mo na well-supported yung mga transactions na nilalagay mo sa books, right? Kasi pag nag-audit, again, ikaw naman yung mag-interface niyan with the IRS, hindi yung client, right? At hindi pag ang client, that audit led the client to pay more high penalties, that can cost you your job as a bookkeeper. All right. So now that you know these things, meals, travel, huwag niyong basta-bastang i-record yan. Because if you don't ask your client about it, you're exposing your client to potential IRS audit, right? And pag na-audit yan, sakit mo din yan sa ulo. Kahit pa sabihin na, si client naman yung mananagot, si client naman yung mababayad. Which is true, right? Hindi naman ikaw yung pababayaran ng client, but ikaw yung accountable, right? And again, it could cost you your job as a bookkeeper for that client. So mas maigi ng diligent ka. So when you see transactions that relate to travel, tanongin mo si client. Like I see hotel expenses, flight expenses, rental car expenses. Did you travel during this period? And was that travel for personal or for business? Or was it even a mix, right? So now that you know these things, these could help you as a bookkeeper. And that's the reason why pretty much we wanted bookkeepers to attend our business tax prep course, because it also really benefits you guys.
All right. Well, that is our travel expenses. Thanks for watching.
Lisa traveled from Philadelphia to New York on a business trip for her employer. She is not reimbursed for the travel expenses. Lisa spends 2 days in business meetings and 1 day on vacation. Lisa's meals cost $90, $30 per day. Lodging costs $360, which is $120 per day, and train fare cost is $102. What is the total amount of Lisa's business-related travel expense?
Right. So Lisa is an employee, right? So on a business trip for her employer, and she is not reimbursed for the travel expenses. So yan yung keywords.
Okay, this is one of those questions that frustrates you because you just spent all the time to read through this, and I just want to go back to one important thing for her employer. Okay, she's not reimbursed, which stinks for her, but unfortunately, only self-employed individuals are permitted a deduction for these type of travel expenditures. So in her case, the answer is actually zero. She doesn't get to deduct any of these as an unreimbursed employee expense.
Yeah,
All right.
the reason for this, guys, wala namang form for unreimbursed business expenses, right? There used to be in Schedule A. But because Lisa is an employee, meaning she has a W-2. Kung hindi siya employee, rather contractor siya, that she gets a 1099 NEC, which you report in a Schedule C, then kahit pa unreimbursed yan, she can deduct that as an expense. But because she's an employee and it's non-reimbursed, then she still cannot deduct that as a business expense. Kapag ni-reimburse siya, madideduct din. Hindi rin. Kung mas larong hindi, pag ni-reimburse siya, hindi rin niya madideduct. Kasi nga, hindi naman siya, she's not doing it for her own business. It's for the employer. Pero sino namang baliw, ano? Ang mag-attend ka ng business trip for your employer, tapos you'll spend your own money to a tune of 360 plus 90, tapos 102 po for the train fare, tapos hindi ka re-reimburse. Ano yan? Nagiging sip-sip ka lang sa boss mo. Charet. This is not a very common occurrence, guys. But this could happen. I mean, this could show up in the EA exam. So at least alam mo yung sagot.
All right, so our answer here is B, 0. Expenses for travel outside the United States are not allocated between business and personal days when? Okay, so what's the criteria?
This is more of memory. So expenses for travel outside the US are not allocated between business and personal days when a personal vacation was not a major consideration, or is it that the trip was not more than 7 consecutive days, or at least 75% of the time was spent on business, or all of the answers are correct. All right, let's see.
For not having to do any allocation for travel outside the U.S.? Is it A, personal vacation was not a major consideration? Yeah, I kind of remember that in our outline. Was it B, the trip was not more than 7 consecutive days? Was it C, at least 75% of the time was spent on business? Or is it D, all of the above? And my friends, it is actually all of the above. Those are the criteria that must be met in order to not have to do any allocation between business and personal days, particularly for travel outside the United States. All right, so answer is D, all the above.
All right, all of the above. Good job for all those who got the correct answer. Now, insurance.
There are some rules around deducting business insurance expenses, so let's break that down. Ordinary and necessary trade or business insurance expenses paid or incurred during the tax year are potentially deductible. This includes various types of insurance that protect your business operations. If you use the cash method of accounting, you cannot deduct an insurance premium before it is actually paid. The deduction is only allowed in the year the payment is made. If you prepay insurance for more than 1 year, though, you must apportion the expense over the period of coverage. So, for example, if you pay for a 3-year insurance policy up front, you can only deduct the portion that applies to the current tax year. There are specific insurance-related expenses that you cannot deduct. You cannot deduct insurance premiums for policies that cover the loss of earnings except for certain overhead insurance expenses. Contributions to self-insurance reserve funds are also not deductible. These funds are only deductible when actual payments are made. Premiums on life insurance policies covering the taxpayer, an employee, or any person with a financial interest in the taxpayer's business are not deductible if the taxpayer is directly or indirectly a beneficiary. If you are a self-employed person and eligible for coverage under your spouse's employer's plan, you cannot deduct the costs of that health insurance coverage. So suppose you are a small business owner and you pay $1,200 for a 1-year general liability insurance policy. You can deduct the full $1,200 in the year it is paid. However, if you paid $3,600 for a 3-year policy, you can only deduct $1,200 each year for the next 3 years. That's a really great chart in your Gleim Knowledge Transfer Outline that you're noticing, so I want you to check that out. Oh, and also, for self-employed individuals, health insurance premiums are not deductible on Schedule C. Instead, those are deducted on Form 1040 Schedule 1 in the Adjustments to Income section.
Right. One thing that's very important to remember in self-employment insurance, so if we go to a 1040 tax return, and the same thing is true with S Corp, yung mga insurance nila, because it becomes a business deduction. But on the part of the business owner ng S Corp, that's already part of their W-2, right? So para mabawasan yung W-2 niya, that has to be adjusted on Schedule 1 of the 1040. So again, it's something that relates to self-employment insurance. If you look at Schedule C, you will actually encounter a line item for insurance. So let's go to Schedule C right here. Income statement. And here. Health insurance premiums reduction for here, insurance other than health, right? So meaning insurance to like insurance for vehicle, for property, those are that. This field is for that type of insurance, right? And this one, iba naman to. It's not about the person's or the owner's insurance. So again, pag insurance related to self-employment, you will not put that on Schedule C. Rather, lagyan lang natin to ng amount para magkaroon tayo ng Schedule 1. So that becomes an adjustment dito sa Schedule 1. And if you're also maintaining the books of your client or you're thinking of doing the tax return for the client, paying a self-employment insurance is another way for them to reduce their taxable income. So Control F, insurance. Yeah, here. So it becomes an adjustment here. Self-employment health insurance, line number 17. Okay. Okay. Dito niyo yan ilalagay yung premium that were paid for the insurance. Depends on what type of insurance was used. Okay. So again, very important to remember. And very important to ask. Right? Kasi minsan din nakakaligtaan yan i-ask. Did you pay, I mean, in the tax organizer, there should be a question that say, did you pay in insurance that covers yourself as the self-employed? Kasi if you miss that, that's a missed deduction. Sayang naman.
All right. Well, that's our insurance expenses. Thanks for watching.
All of the following insurance premiums are ordinarily deductible as an insurance expense, except, okay, so which one is not going to be deductible? Is it A, workers' compensation on behalf of partners in...
Sign lang muna. So all of the following insurance premiums are ordinarily deductible as an insurance expense, except, is it A, workers' compensation on behalf of partners in a business partnership? Is it life insurance on the life of an employee with the employer's wife as a beneficiary? Is it group health insurance that does not contain continuation coverage to employees? Or is it malpractice insurance covering a professional's personal liability for negligence resulting in injury to business clients? So hindi to na-cover, but
a business partnership. If you're not familiar, workers' compensation is if you get injured at work, you kind of sue your boss. So if I'm a partner in a partnership, is the partner going to sue themselves? So that kind of seems a little, if we were to put this in an Excel vernacular, that's a circular reference, right? That just kind of doesn't seem to add up. B, life insurance on the life of an employee with the employee's wife as a beneficiary. That is to the employee, right? So that's almost a benefit to the employee to have that coverage. It's part of their compensation package, similar to salary. I would deduct their salary. So B seems to be okay. C, group health insurance that does not contain continuation coverage to employees. So this is, again, group. It's for employees. So that one would also seem in the same vein of thought as we did for B, be deductible. D, malpractice insurance covering a professional's personal liability for negligence resulting in injury to business clients. And as a professional, as an enrolled agent, and you as a budding enrolled agent, my friends, I will tell you one thing that you're going to want to pursue is business liability and malpractice insurance. And malpractice insurance is just to cover us in case we mess up and our clients are injured. In this case, it wouldn't be a physical injury, but it could be an economic injury. The correct answer for us here is A. And for those reasons, right, where I kind of talked about it being almost a circular reference, you're suing yourself for getting injured at your place of business because you're the partner. That one isn't deductible ordinarily as an insurance expense. So for us here, correct answer is A. You operate a business and file your tax return on a calendar year basis. You bought a fire insurance policy on your building effective November 1, year 1, and paid a premium of $1,200 for 2 years of coverage. How much can you deduct on your year 1 return? Okay.
So proration ito. You operate a business and file your tax return on calendar year basis. You bought a fire insurance policy on your building effective November 1, year 1, and paid a premium of $1,200 for 2 years of coverage. How much can you deduct on year 1? So only 2 months for the first year, correct? So how much is 2 months?
Okay, so the key on this is the fact that it's 2 years of coverage. It's extending beyond the end of next taxable year. And when that happens, even though you are a calendar year cash basis taxpayer, even though it doesn't even say cash basis in this problem, you have to capitalize the expenditure and deduct it over time. So as we take a look here with the $1,200, we are taking that over 24 months. So let's go ahead and grab our calculator, right? We could do this in our head, I'm sure, but in the panicked environment of testing, you want to make sure that you are your math is all good here. So that's $50 a month. Okay, so that is $50 a month. Now, this was purchased in November 1 of year 1. So November, an entire month, December, an entire month. So I'm going to take $50 per month, and that one we won't need the calculator. We can do that pretty easy in our head. That's $100. So the correct answer on this is C, $100, because I can only take 2 months of the premium that was prepaid as coverage.
Let's discuss the rules around bad debt deductions, both personal and business related. There are some terms we should first better understand. A bad debt deduction is allowed only for a bona fide debt arising from a debtor-creditor relationship based on a valid and enforceable obligation to pay a fixed or determinable sum of money. A worthless debt is deductible only to the extent of the adjusted basis in that debt. This means you can only deduct the amount you have invested in the debt. Money lent to a relative or friend with the understanding that it may not be repaid is considered a gift, not a loan. Therefore, it cannot be deducted as a bad debt. So suppose you lend $1,000 to a friend with the expectation of repayment, but they never repay it. If there was no enforceable agreement, this is considered a gift and you cannot deduct it as a bad debt. Above all, a cash basis taxpayer has no basis in accounts receivable and generally cannot deduct bad debts. This is because income is only recognized when received, so there is no receivable to actually write off. A business bad debt is one that is incurred or acquired in connection with or closely related to the taxpayer's trade or business. A debt is closely related if the primary motive for incurring the debt is business related. So, for example, if you make a loan to a client, which might be a supplier or an employee even, or even to a distributor for a business reason, and it becomes worthless, it is considered a business bad debt. The bad debts of corporations are always considered business bad debts. Partially worthless business debts may be deducted to the extent they are worthless and specifically written off. A business bad debt is treated as an ordinary loss, which can offset ordinary income. If a business debt written off in a previous tax year is then subsequently recovered in a current tax year, it should be reported as other income. So suppose you are a business owner and you lend $5,000 to a supplier to help them through a tough time, but they go out of business and cannot repay you. This loan can be deducted as a business bad debt because it was made for a business reason. A non-business bad debt is a debt other than one incurred or acquired in connection with the taxpayer's trade or business. Investments are not treated as a trade or business. So, for example, a shareholder loan to protect an investment in the corporation is not treated as a business loan. A partially worthless non-business bad debt is not deductible. A wholly worthless non-business debt is deducted in the year it becomes worthless and is treated as a short-term capital loss. Taxpayers cannot take a bad debt deduction for a loan that they make to a corporation if it is actually contribution of capital. Worthless corporate securities are generally treated as a capital loss, not a bad debt. Taxpayers can take a bad debt deduction only if the amount owed was previously included in gross income. This applies to amounts owed from all sources of taxable income, including sales, services, rents, and interest. For cash method taxpayers, income is reported when received, so they cannot deduct amounts that were never included in income.
Oh my gosh. What is wrong with you, JD?
If you loan $2,000,
Start
amount owed was previously included in gross income. This applies to amounts owed from all sources of taxable income, including sales, services, rents, and interest. For cash method taxpayers, income is reported when received, so they cannot deduct amounts that were never included in income. If you loan $2,000 to a friend to start a business and it becomes worthless, you can deduct it as a non-business bad debt in the year it becomes worthless, treating it as a short-term capital loss. The specific write-off method generally must be used for tax purposes. The reserve method is used for financial accounting
Deal.
taxpayers. Income is reported when received, so they cannot deduct amounts that were never included in income. If you loan $2,000 to a friend to start a business and it becomes worthless, you can deduct it as a non-business bad debt in the year it becomes worthless, treating it as a short-term capital loss. The specific write-off method generally must be used for tax purposes. The reserve method is used for financial accounting purposes. Taxpayers can deduct specific bad debts that become either partly or totally worthless during the tax year. Taxpayers can deduct specific bad debts that become partly uncollectible. The tax deduction is then limited to the amount charged off on the books during the year. So if you have a receivable of $1,000 that becomes partly uncollectible and you write off $400, you can deduct the $400 as bad debt. All right, well, that's what we wanted to highlight for bad debts. Thanks for watching.
Mr. Benson, who operates a small tools company, in order to retain the customer, guaranteed payment of $10,000 note for Black Hardware Store, one of Mr. Benson's largest clients. Black Hardware later filed for bankruptcy and defaulted on the loan. Mr. Benson made full payment to satisfy the note. Mr. Benson's payment should be considered. Okay, so what is this with Mr. Benson? All right, so let's kind of eliminate a couple of these, right? A and B are just, it's either business bad debt or non-business bad debt. So let's see C and D if we can eliminate those. Was it a gift? Well, you know, my friends, as a business owner myself, as much as I like helping people, we're trying to make a profit. So it's not a gift. And I think it's also really important to go back and recognize these key words, right? We saw loan coming on here, note, which is a synonym for loan, right? So this is a formal loan. This is a debt, not an equity component. So this is not an investment. So now we're down to business bad debt or non-business bad debt. And because this is connected to Mr. Benson's business in some fashion, this is truly a business bad debt. A non-business bad debt would be something that Mr. Benson had some extra money and he loaned it for something that he's not in the ordinary course of doing for his profession. Here, in this case, a small tools supply company. So because it's related to business, it's a debt investment, not an equity investment. It wasn't a gift. A is our answer. Mary, a seamstress, made loans of $5,000 and $1,000 to Buttons and Bows and Threadbare, respectively. Both of these establishments are partnerships. Mary also made a loan of $2,000 to her cousin Sarah, who was starting her own business as a proprietorship. The loans to both partnerships improved Mary's business, which was the reason Mary made the loans. If all 3 loans become uncollectible, what amount may Mary deduct as a business bad debt?
Continue muna, guys. So 5,000 and 1,000 and 2,000. So is the entire 8,000 a business bad debt or not really? So I don't think, right? Because it's it's not in any of the choices. Wala namang 8,000. Si Mary is si Sarah is cousin of Mary. So relative. So is it just the partnerships, a loan to the partnerships, or just one of them? Let's see.
Okay. Business bad debt. Mary's a seamstress, and her business improved, right, as a result of the loans. But we don't know the partnerships, right? Both partnerships, meaning Buttons and Bows and Threadbare. The real question is, what do we do with this $2,000 to a cousin? Well, that's really generous of you, Mary, but unfortunately, if that goes bad, you're not in the business of loaning out to other people. You are a seamstress. So it's really only those loans that are attributable to your line of business. So I've got $5,000 and $1,000. Add that up. $6,000 is our correct answer.
Believe me, guys, yung actual EA exam, ganun din siya. Hindi siya yung mga tricky na exam. Sometimes alam mo na yung sagot pagbasa mo pa lang ng tanong.
Expenditures for business gifts are deductible if they are ordinary and necessary. There are, however, specific rules and limitations we need to keep in mind. To deduct a business gift, you must substantiate the following with adequate records: the amount, the date, description, purpose, and relation. Those are all necessary. The deduction for business gifts is limited to $25 per recipient per year for items being excludable from income. If a gift is given to a member of a customer's family, it is generally considered an indirect gift to the customer unless there is a bona fide independent business connection with that family member and the gift is not intended for the customer's eventual use. A husband and wife are treated as one taxpayer even if they file separate returns and have independent business relationships with the recipients. Incidental costs such as engraving on the jewelry, packaging, branding, insuring, mailing, these are all generally not included in determining the cost of the gift for the purposes of the $25 limit. That $25 limit does not apply to incidental items not costing more than $4 each and other promotional material, including signs, displays, pens, things of that nature. So suppose you give a $30 gift to a client. Only $25 of that amount is deductible. If you also spend $5 on engraving, the engraving cost is not included in the $25, so you can still deduct the full $25 for that gift. Employers can also deduct the cost of employee achievement awards, but there are specific limitations to this criteria. Up to $400 of the cost to the employer, not the fair market value, of the Employee Achievement Award is deductible for all non-qualified plan awards. The deduction for qualified plan awards is limited to $1,600 per year. An Employee Achievement Award is tangible personal property awarded to an employee as part of a meaningful presentation for safety or achievement such as length of service. Tangible personal property does not include cash equivalents, gift cards, coupons, certificates, vacations, meals, lodging, theater tickets, sporting event tickets, stocks, bonds, or other securities. If you award an employee a $500 watch for their 10 years of service, you can deduct up to $400 of the cost if it is a non-qualified plan award. If it is a qualified plan award, you can deduct the full $500 provided it does not exceed the $1,600 annual limit. All right, well, I hope you found this overview rewarding. Thanks for watching.
William Roberts sells products to unrelated XYZ Corporation. He gave XYZ 5 cheese packages to thank them for their business. Mr. Roberts paid $100 for each package for a total of $500. 5 of the XYZ Corporation executives took the packages home. How much can William deduct for the gifts?
Okay. Sagutin niyo muna. Okay. Looks like you have an answer already.
Okay. The biggest key number to remember when we are talking about gifts is $25. Now that number has held constant for a number of years. That is $25 per recipient. So how many recipients did we have here? We see that 5, right? So he had 5 cheese packages, 5 XYZ Corporation executives. 25 times 5 is $125. And that is actually the extent of the deduction that William Roberts can take here. Even though he spent more on those cheese packages, very generous. Hopefully it facilitated some goodwill, but unfortunately it's $25 per that is ultimately deductible. So $125 is our answer. Jennifer Lloyd sells products to John Smith Company. She gave the firm 5 packages of cashews to thank 5 employees for the referrals. Ms. Lloyd paid $75 for each package. How much can she deduct for the gifts on her tax return?
Okay.
So my
I need that, guys. So
friends, anytime you're seeing gifts, you got to be thinking of one number, which is $25 per. So $25 per gift, you can spend whatever you want on them, and it's the lesser of the amount spent or $25. So it is a maximum amount per person that you can take. So $25 times $5 per person, that is $125. So as we take a look at our options here, there's B, 125.
madali lang yung gifts, guys. Mabilis tandaan. Right. So 5 out of 5. We still have 4 more subtopics. Let's see how long is this. This is 6 minutes. We only have 9 minutes left, and we still have Q&A. So let's put it out for tomorrow. Because this is like 7 plus 4. So it's gonna be more than 9 minutes. So we don't want to go over time. So let's finish this tomorrow. And then by tomorrow, we should already be done with the first 5 study units of the EA business business course. So after this, we would only have 15 more, right? And we're not even in November yet. So I really think we can complete this before end of November. So my plan is we will finish this tomorrow, right? And then on Friday, we'll take a review of all the questions for all these. So I'll have someone facilitate that review questions. And because I will be out on Friday, I'll be traveling to Bohol. And then while I'm traveling, I will come up with an exercise where you will be preparing over the weekend if you want to tax returns. Okay, so simple tax returns. I'll come up with several scenarios where you will prepare those tax returns, and I'll also provide you with the guide answer. Okay, so I'm thinking if I should give you, I should just give you first Schedule C and Schedule E, right? Because we have not covered 1120S and 1065 yet. Because C Corp's partnership will be on the 9th lesson, C Corp is on lesson 12, and S Corp is in lesson 17. So we'll have that exercise over the weekend para meron din naman kayong gawin. And then if you guys would want to meet on your small groups, you can to discuss para din mas ma-retain nyo yung, especially on the rental loss limitation, that's very common. And yung meals, yung home office, yung mileage, those are very common among Schedule C business filers. So you would really want to be familiar yourself with that. And again, for those wala pang ProConnect, make sure that you are able to set up ProConnect. Saka na muna yung Drake. Masterin niyo muna yung ProConnect, and pag na-master niyo na yung ProConnect, saka muna kayo mag-Drake. Or nasa sa inyo na yan. Kung comfortable na kayo already with ProConnect, then do Drake. And if you need assistance on how to set those up, just go to the notes or the resources. Okay, are we still all good? There's a question. Are gifts deductible if they are given to an employer to employees? Yes. Na-cover natin yan sa previous lesson. May 25 pa din na limit for a gift to employees. Okay. Anything else? Do you have any other question other than what Joan posted in the chat? Are we all good? All right. So I guess we're all good. Let's end 5 minutes before time. I'll see you guys again tomorrow, and let's finish the study lesson number 5. Okay? Thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone.
Good
Bye for now.
evening, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Chris.
Recording stopped.